Welcome back to The Point and a special interview with the Railway Minister Suresh Prabhu. In part 1, we spoke about the challenges he faces as Railways Minister. We turn now to the challenges the Modi government faces as it completes its first year in office. Minister, Tuesday is the first anniversary of the Modi government. In a recent interview to the Economic Times, you said you give the Modi government 9 out of 10. Is that a case of loyalty taking precedence over judgment? 9 out of 10?
If you really look at it, this is a mistake we always make. Now, if again coming back to the patient case, when you come and examine the patient, the doctor is going to tell you, oh, I'm very happy, doing well. But the mother is going to say, oh, he's still in the bed. But the point is, where was the patient? When we took over the economy, what was the situation of India? Where were we a year ago? We should try to never forget what we were and how much we have travelled today. We have travelled a great deal in last 1 year, and I would feel that I should give 10 out of 10. As I said at that interview, because you are quoting, I said I am giving 9 out of 10 because our bar is too high. Because our aspirations are very high. We want to do even more than what we have done already. And I am very sure we'll be doing much, much better in the next 4 years' time when we complete our term.
Can I tell you why I raised a question about 9 out of 10? Because it reminded me of those CBSE marks where students get 99%. And not only are such marks unbelievable, but actually, to my mind, they raise questions about the exam and the examiner. And they say to yourself, if someone can get 99 out of 100, there's something wrong with the exam. Similarly, if a minister gives 9 out of 10 to his own government, people say, this is loyalty, not judgment.
So, this is something, when we do a very objective questioning, you definitely feel that you have only given 9, I should have given more. That's what you will definitely come to the conclusion. So you should have given more. But I am saying, because our own bar is very high, we want to do far, far better, and we could have done better. For a simple reason, we could not, as the global issues are still a challenge. The global economy is still not growing as much as we want it to grow. And we inherited an economy, we inherited a system, we inherited a bureaucracy which was demoralized, and we inherited a complete country in a demoralized manner. From there, we are trying to bring it back to rails. We are trying to make it run. So that's what I feel, that we have done a great job in last 1 year. Thanks to the Prime Minister. I would say that, just imagine, and just give me few seconds to say this. You yourself are reporting. Has Prime Minister taken a single day break in last 2 years? Every day is doing. He went to Japan.
Except sometimes the holiday is a good idea. It recharges the batteries.
But he's recharging by working more. See, there are various ways of recharging. There's a various way of refueling. You can refuel a plane while it is flying. So this is what it does. You actually, the planes that are flying nowadays, we don't need to come to ground to refuel. You can refuel on the
So Mr. Modi is like a modern day plane. He doesn't need refueling. He charges himself.
So he refuels by doing more work, because that is what his motivation.
You don't think he'll get exhausted and run out of steam?
He is doing so much of more. And just imagine, he just gets down from one country, he gets down from one state. That's another thing. He has travelled to so many, almost all states in India. With him, I have gone to Northeast at least 3-4 times. I don't think any Prime Minister would have gone to Northeast so many times in first year.
I accept your argument that Mr. Modi is tireless. Many other people would say that the Prime Minister should take a Sunday. Sundays are essential. And if he had a wife and if he had children, he would have to take a Sunday, because wives and children demand the attention of their husband and fathers. Mr. Modi is lucky he doesn't have a family.
But at the same time, he could have taken a holiday on a Sunday if the previous government had not left so much of work to be done. He could then relax. But he has no time to relax, because the previous government has kept so much of accumulated work. Right. He's like a housewife. He comes home and there's so many utensils to be cleaned, so much of food to be done. She's tired, but what can she do? She's working.
All right, let's come back from Mr. Modi to Mr. Modi's government, because it's Mr. Modi's government essentially that I want to talk about in part 2. There's no doubt that you were elected with enormous hopes, with enormous expectations. But a year later, not just the opposition, many of your allies, like the Bharatiya Mazdoor Sangh, like the Bharatiya Kisan Sangh, are saying that your government is pro-rich, anti-poor, anti-farmer. They're even saying that you are beholden to corporate interests. Do you have an image problem because of the way you are handling some of the challenges you face?
First of all, I want to understand from where this argument comes from. Becoming pro-rich, how we have become pro-rich? We are the government which, in my opinion, the first government which is trying to bring people out of poverty by genuine programs. I'll give one example. The example of our financial inclusion, Jan Dhan Yojana. In that one scheme, we have brought each and every poor family to the banking system. We have nationalized bank in 1969 on the hope that this poor will benefit. Did poor benefit in the banking system?
But the problem
so
is
that poor, no, just see, bank nationalization was touted as a pro-poor program, but the bank nationalization never succeeded what Prime Minister has been able to do in less than 6 months.
The problem, Mr. Prabhu, is this: the example you're giving me is theoretically very convincing. I don't deny it. But look at what Mr. C.K. Saji Narayanan, a former president of the BMS, a member of the Sangh Parivar, and now he's a steering committee member of the BMS, and that's your trade union. Do you know what he says? The government is beholden to corporate interests. Why is he unable to see the Jan Dhan Yojana as you present it? Why instead is he saying you're anti-poor, anti-farmer, pro-rich, and he's one of your allies?
See, first of all, I don't know what he has said, so it is unfair for me to comment on something which I have not read myself.
Economic Times, you gave them an interview that day.
No, sure, but I have not read it myself, so it's really unfair. But let me leave that out. But I will just tell you something. Our policies, let me look at not the criticism part, but the reality part. The reality is...
Can I interrupt? It's not the reality, it's the perception and the image that's a problem.
I know, correct. So maybe the reality perception is temporary, reality is permanent.
Is the perception temporary?
The reality will come back.
At the moment, the perception is holding you up in Parliament. The bills you want to pass, which are essential,
perception is not holding up in the Parliament. Those who are holding the Parliament up are holding up the Parliament. But it is not a perception. See, the perception is, that's what I'm saying. The reality will always prevail. Perceptions will disappear because that's not a reality. Point I'm saying is, in our case, our DNA of a government is purely pro-poor, pro-farmer, pro-worker, pro-proletariat, pro-masses and working class. We want to work for them.
You know, that's the other half of your problem, because you put this answer so convincingly that many industrialists and investors who were great believers in the Modi government, after they hear you and after the experience of the last year, actually are today disappointed. They are now worried about the slow rate of reform. They're worried about your handling of tax issues. They're worried about the fact that investment isn't picking up. They turn around and say that Mr. Modi is letting us down. Deepak Parekh is an example.
Now, let me tell you. Because we are pro-poor does not mean we are anti-anybody. Becoming pro does not necessarily has to result into anti-somebody.
But you're trying to be everything to everybody, and that's the problem.
That's what not we are doing. What we are doing is, this is our DNA. So to help poor, how you help poor? For him to create a job, I must get investment. To get investment, if I don't have enough money, otherwise I have to tax people to get more money for investment, I have to get private capital. So the private capital that I am getting in is to help poverty. They have the entrepreneurship, they get a market, poverty gets reduced, they work on it. This is the model.
Mr. Prabhu, in any college lecture room, that argument would be convincing because it is accurate, it is correct. The problem is that in politics, this sort of complicated economic argument is difficult to convey, and more importantly, the Rahul Gandhis, by calling you suited, booted, with one phrase can destroy the argument. That's the problem. Truth may be on your side, perception is against you, facts may be on your side, but the criticism can be so sharply conveyed with suited, booted, you're demolished.
You know, you normally don't see sometimes sun in the sky, and then somebody can come and say, see, I was telling you always that sun was just there for temporary, has gone. Does it disappear? This is the reality. We are like a sun, will keep shining. The clouds that are there of suspicion, unnecessarily created,
you have to,
of perception which is not real, will go away, the sun will keep shining, clouds will disappear.
You have to believe when you say that the Indian people can accept a little bit of philosophy and a little bit of economic logic. Most often in politics, criticism and wit works better than philosophy and logic. But you are absolutely right to rely on logic and philosophy. Let me come to a second problem that you face. People say that your handling of Parliament is not as effective and not as accommodating as it should be. After all, you know better than anyone else, you don't have a majority in the Rajya Sabha. You're not going to get one for 2, maybe 3 years. In that circumstance, you should have been reaching out to the opposition. Instead, you seem to have not just offended the opposition, you've offended your own allies, and critical bills like land acquisition amendments and GST are stuck. Would you accept you could have handled Parliament better?
You know, go by the parliamentary record. The number of bills that have been passed in this session or this particular last 1 year of the parliamentary session has been a record in last more than 10-15 years. So how did we do that? If we were like this, how could you achieve it? But if somebody wants to pretend to be sleeping when he's actually not sleeping, can you wake him up? So this is something which is the problem. The problem is not that we are not going and waking up a sleeping person. The problem is how do you get over the pretenses of this?
But you're talking about people sleeping when they should be awake. You're talking about the pretenses. One of the people who's sleeping or pretending is your ally Akali MP Naresh Gujral. Let me quote to you what he said to scroll.in on the 30th of April, which is just 3 weeks ago. I do not understand the need for promulgating an ordinance, and he's talking about land acquisition, when the BJP doesn't have a majority in the Rajya Sabha. And then he says, in the process, they have united the opposition and they've given artificial respiration to Congress. And then he adds, as for the passage of the land bill, the government should see the writing on the wall. It's in no position to pass the bill in the Rajya Sabha. It cannot call a joint session. Now your own ally is saying.
So, this is something we should admire about the BJP. That our allies also have the freedom to speak what they want to speak. So you should actually be complimenting our Prime Minister.
You're a superb politician. You're turning the criticism on his head.
Compliment the Prime Minister for allowing our allies to have the leeway to speak about it, but we all work together. We are in the same government. We'll continue to work like this.
But do you all work together? Because this is something else Naresh Gujral says. There is arrogance in the BJP. Their floor management is extremely poor and they have failed to accept that they do not have a majority in the Rajya Sabha. And then he adds, it's not just the Akali Dal, but all allies feel they have not been given due respect. It is also true that resentment is building up. That's your own ally 3 weeks ago.
I think you have given us a very good information.
You mean you didn't know this?
I will use this information as an input and we'll definitely work on it. Thank you very much for giving this information.
Okay, let me come to another subject. You're superb at deflecting the subject. I have to give you 100% marks for that. I think more of your charm would have worked better with the opposition than some of the other tactics your party has used. Perhaps my advice to your colleagues is use Suresh Prabhu to reach out to the Akalis. And that smile says
Akalis are very good friends of ours. In fact, I have been to Punjab maybe 3 times in last 6 months and we'll continue to work with them.
Let me come to something else.
They are Akalis and we are not Akelas, we are work together.
Let me come to something else for which you've got a lot of criticism both in the media but also in public opinion. It's your silence over things like Ghar Vapsi and Love Jihad. Eminent people like Julio Roberto, Admiral Sushil Kumar have expressed their personal anguish. President Obama expressed his concern. And most of the time, the Prime Minister is either silent or he's very reluctant and slow to speak out. And I put it to you, this is attracting attention and creating doubts where you don't need them. One lesson perhaps your government should learn is that on these moral issues, you should speak out more often.
Firstly, I think I will only highlight 2 important statements besides others. Our Prime Minister has already commented on it. And he exactly has said what his mind was and he has already mentioned it. But even before the statement that you attribute to various people, on 15th of August, when he was speaking from the Red Fort, he had said, right now our agenda should be development. Let us not bring any other divisive issues to fore. What is the statement? How you understand the import of the statement? So Prime Minister said it even before these so-called statements came to fore. So he said this one, but secondly he has also commented. Secondly, only the other day, only few days, I think just 2 days ago, our national president, Mr. Amit Shah, has also clearly commented on it. So the question is that, there may be several comments. So if you want to keep commenting on every comment, then it's very difficult. The Prime Minister and the President of the party will not have any other job to do.
I can understand that the Prime Minister can't comment on every comment, and I accept that what he said on the ramparts of the Red Fort was hugely reassuring. It was widely welcome. But then, ministers like Sadhvi Niranjan Jyoti, Yogi Adityanath, at times Sushma Swaraj, at times Kalraj Mishra, junior MPs, all came in and said a spate of silly things that worried people. There were remarks made by people like Mohan Bhagwat, the head of the RSS. And people said, if after having spoken on the Red Fort, the Prime Minister is silent and lets all these people speak, people begin to question, did he mean it? Was he sincere when he spoke on 15th August? Because doubt comes in. And India is a fragile country when it comes to communal relations. And you know better than me, the BJP has an image that sometimes may be a problem. That's why I say, maybe the PM should speak repeatedly.
He has spoken on it quite a few times. So I am saying this is an unnecessary debate. Prime Minister has made it mind clear as a head of the government Mr. Amit Shah, the head of the party, has made his policy clear. So, party as well as the government, what it thinks about it has been made abundantly clear. Now, I request everybody just, that's gone. So, let us now move on and try to work together.
All right. I hear you. I hope the audience take reassurance, because I can certainly see that the man in front of me is very sincere and doesn't share any of those doubts that other people have expressed in public. Let me come now to a second area where your government has received criticism from civil society as well as the media, and that's your attitude to NGOs. Priya Pillai of Greenpeace wanted to go abroad to speak to British MPs. You stopped her. The High Court struck it down. It embarrassed you. Before that, you put a bar on 2 Greenpeace bank accounts. The High Court struck it down. Again, you got embarrassed. Now, more recently, you put a freeze on all Greenpeace funds, and you put Ford Foundation, one of the most reputable NGOs in the world, on a watch list. And people say, do you have a problem with NGOs? Are you spoiling for a fight with them? Why are you doing this?
Because you meant specifically, let me tell you about the Ford Foundation. This is not, we have done it. This was a continuation of the previous government. If you recall, then Prime Minister, Dr. Manmohan Singh, had said that the protests that are going on in Tamil Nadu against the nuclear power plant are motivated by forces outside, and some of the funding that is going in, that's how the process
But
started.
he never named Ford Foundation.
I'll tell you, but I'm just telling you that the process was continuing like this.
So Ford Foundation has been under scrutiny from Manmohan Singh's time.
These are all confidential record, but I'm just saying the public statement which you made, the confidential record, I don't know and I don't have it, but I'm just saying, but this is something, if you recall, this is what he had said, and that's why the process had started. This is one part. But the second part is, we are not against the NGOs, very clearly. How many thousands of NGOs work in India? Thousands, maybe lakhs of NGOs are working in India, of which you are giving example of 1 or 2 who have faced these challenges. Any part of the world, we did not make the Foreign Contribution Regulation Act. That Foreign Contribution Regulation Act was made years ago by various governments, endorsed by the government. So I'm not even saying that the government which did it was rightly or wrongly. So what is the job of this government? Is to administer the law. How do you administer the law? To administer the law, we must find out the source of money, one, and also find out the application of money.
That I understand.
Yeah, so that is the administration job, that is the administration.
But you see, if you were only administering the law and nothing more, then the Delhi High Court would not have commented the way it did. You know what they said? I'm paraphrasing. They said, just because an NGO or an individual dissents from your development model, criticizes your development model or opposes your development model, doesn't make him anti-national. Yet your own lawyers in court were arguing that this dissent and this criticism is anti-national. At least let Suresh Prabhu assure me, you don't think criticism is anti-national.
But Karan, let me tell you something. Court has never said that this government is anti-NGO, has they said? Court has never commented like that. Has court said that this government is working against the NGOs of the country?
But the position taken by your lawyers in court, position taken by your lawyers in court was equating dissent and criticism.
That was about that NGO. So even our lawyers never went to court and argued that all NGOs in India are anti-national.
But it was struck down by the court.
But that is about one NGO. So that is what I'm saying. So that does not mean, and we should not even draw inference about that particular NGOs, and that's a court interpretation, judicial process, we respect it.
Okay.
Judiciary is paramount. But neither court nor our lawyers ever have said that NGOs in India are wrong, and court has ever said that we are.
So you give me as a cabinet minister an assurance that your government is not anti-NGO.
No, not at all.
And you also give me an assurance that criticism of your development model is not anti-national in your eyes.
See, this all depends upon what is the motivation for it. See, you try to understand. If we are trying to do.
How do you know someone's motivation?
That's a process. Basically.
But when you question motivation, you leave yourself open to come to a conclusion that it's anti-national. That's the problem.
See, I'll just tell you. If a person in India has some ideas about some new development model, we welcome it. But suppose a person has an idea of a development model and the motivation comes from some other countries who don't want India to take it up for a variety of reasons. That's what the previous government
Socialist and communist motivations must come from Karl Marx, who was German and lived in England. But is that a foreign country?
That's what the previous government failed. And that's why when the Kudakulam protests were going on, they were clamped down very badly, and that was the reason why they clamped down.
I suddenly feel that having given me an assurance that you're not anti-NGO, when you bring up this question of motivation, you're opening up a window that suggests maybe there is room to criticize NGOs on the grounds that their ideas come from abroad.
But this all depends upon, that's why I'm talking about. See, when we are inviting, we are not against foreign money, we invite FDI. We allow the NGOs to get money from abroad. That's why we have got a Foreign Contribution Regulation Act. But I am just saying it has to be regulated. See, the freedom is not unfettered. The freedom has to be regulated in some fashion. That's what the Constitution talks about. So we have every person in India has a freedom, but that freedom has to be regulated in such a way that that particular freedom does not encroach upon the ability of the society and the country to grow.
All right, Mr. Prabhu, let's leave it there. You opened a window of assurance when you said you're not anti-NGO. You have half closed it by raising this question of motivation, but let's leave it for the audience to judge. I've asked you the questions I feel I have to. It's only fair that the audience should judge. I shouldn't be the one who comments and pushes them in any one direction. I am very grateful to you for giving me so much of your time.
Thank you very much.